another question, and I'm not sure what this is. I'm very intrigued by it. And I have to tell you, about 4 or 5 times I went to go on Google just to search this term. But I'm like, I wanted to save that suspense for this question.
Yes.
Tell me more about the famous boomerang technique.
The buffer boomerang technique. I like, it's really more of conflict management, because somebody may ask you a question with a very negative tone. In fact, I'll show you the image of it. Here's my famous buffer boomerang technique. So somebody may ask you a question with a negative tone. What I like to do is buffer the negative tone. I like to do a name drop, bring it around by saying that's an excellent question, repeating the question to show active listening, and then sending it back as a +2. So for an example, let's say I'm prospecting your company. I'm calling TrulyYourVA, and somebody says, "What is your name?" I would go, Janis. I'm so glad that you asked that question. Once again, my name is Richard Blank. And so you can almost reset the tone on something like that. People will be asking you questions. And so I think instead of just answering it as a, a toe-to-toe where you're almost in principal's office, answering a question because you're in trouble, sometimes you need to buffer the tone, smooth that out a bit, show the active listening, and send it back. And so a lot of the times people will also be doing desert pitching, where they'll just be going through a list of the services that they have. I think people need to pause every now and again for rest and for drink in a desert. You need an oasis. And there's also times for positive and negative reinforcement. And when you find a certain area that you like, you take it from a horizontal to a vertical, and then you start stacking open-ended questions. These, like your virtual assistants, they need to show empathy on the phone and a lot of active listening. I believe that using names are very important. You should do that during tie down or pin down or clarification questions. And then amongst the conversation, using the pronouns of your and are to keep their attention in every 30-second to 2-minute intervals. And so buffer boomerang is really just one of many techniques just to show active listening. So you're not just reacting, you're almost in mode of acting, because of listening and adjusting your conversation accordingly. So the most frustrating thing is repeating. And so as long as that you, once again, understand where that person is coming from, it could lower temperatures, bring back a speed, and give you a little bit more control on a call.
I love that because, Richard, I think there is such a difference from hearing to listening. So you take an active engagement. For instance, obviously we're on Zoom, we're streaming live through my Facebook page, and people can hear it, but are they listening?
Most of the time, though.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Distractions.
Right. There's a lot of distractions. And I think in our, like I said, in the digital world today, there's, for instance, news notifications. I've had to turn off all my news notifications as much as possible because it's distracting. Because when I'm working for a client, as I'm sure you are, because I think we have the same work ethic, I have to tune all that stuff out because that is a distraction. And it's only human nature to, look down. Oh, there's another news alert. Turn off the distractions, because I think that's a lot of outside clutter. We don't need clutter when we're focusing on the task at hand.
We may not have the luxury of that sort of controlled environment. In our offices right now, there's no distractions. But if you and I were somewhere having lunch and there's a lot of noise, we still might need to find that focus. So that's why I mentioned 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And I also believe, once again, when you are engaged with the individual by having checkpoints, either repeating what you say, confirming what you say, thumbsing up what you say, moving on what you say, because it would be foolish of me to be 3 or 4 points down or thinking of that when we haven't even confirmed the one that we are on right now. So people need to slow down a bit. And I think what's very important for me as well, and it can almost set the pace, is a positive escalation. If there are individuals that assist you prior to being transferred, or just anybody along the way, they should be mentioned verbally and in writing. So let's just say, hypothetically, I'm calling a company back. This individual answering the phone will thank me for that compliment, give me more company information, company culture, and would love to transfer the call. So it's almost like the philosophy of Wu Wei, Janis, where we're just trying to reduce any sort of resistance. Go with the current, and let the wind be in your sails. And so when you're trying to force a fit, you're trying to shove in your point, you're stepping on someone's toes, you're interrupting, we're not dancing well. And I think there's a very good place where through deductive reasoning, letting the person talk and then choosing what is the area of focus and possibly getting back to what you need to later in the conversation. Your conversation may be prolonged, but it's also a quality call. And I'm not saying we're repeating anything. What we're possibly doing, Janis, is expanding on certain topics where I couldn't get it before. I love meeting minutes because when someone concludes a conversation, if they can send an email back on all the points that they talked about, they're accountable for it. It's dated, so someone can't say they forgot about it. And it's an excellent point that where you pick up where you left off, you start going through the checkpoint and delegating who has a responsibility. If these are just first-time relationships, we need to create certain boundaries and parameters and protocols because your way of working may be different from mine. And so as long as there's no surprises prior and we can adjust that accordingly, it should flow exceptionally well.
Right. So the next question that I want to ask you